in terms of different sectors, whether it is government, whether it is the private sector, the women's sector, the youth sector. And so this is really a unique space where we feel that all of us have a say in terms of defining how development looks like. And the women's feminists and women's rights organizations have been saying that we do not want to just be instruments of development, but we want to be agents of development. I'm sure we all know the difference. The difference is that we want to make decisions on how development is defined. We want to define development. We want development to be just a means to improving our livelihoods and realizing our human rights as women in all our diversities. So the objectives of really the Women's Forum then today is to consolidate our positions, to ensure that we position our key messages that will be put into consideration and inform the outcome of HLM2 in Nairobi. And for us, what is really key is that development puts women and human rights at the center of its discussion. We know that there's a lot of focus on economic empowerment of women and youth, but we also know that actually economic empowerment cannot happen in isolation. We cannot, if we talk about empowerment of a woman, empowerment of a girl, if she's not also culturally, socially, politically empowered, it will be extremely difficult to actually economically empower her. So we know the interdependence of different aspects of development, but also the importance of putting human rights at the center of development, and that will be the effective development. And in fact, I think the principles of the Global Partnership for Effective Development and Cooperation really define the principles that touches on everything that we push for as the women's rights organization, that feminist groups, which is really around issues of accountability, issues of inclusivity, issues of focusing on results, and issues of democratic ownership. And so without taking so much of your time, for now we are going to do the session of setting the tone, and after that we will do session 1 and we'll break for lunch. When we come back from lunch, we'll have designed the remaining sessions, and we'll communicate that with you so that we are able to achieve our objectives, but also not stay here until midnight. So on this note, I would like to invite Honorable Zabib Hussein, who is the Principal Secretary, State Department of Gender Affairs, Government of Kenya, to come and set the tone for us. You have the floor.
Good morning again. I'm sure you are all at the opening session, so that's why I'm saying good morning one more time. Before I continue, I want to sincerely welcome all of you to Nairobi and to Kenya. And for those of you from outside the continent, to also welcome you to Africa. And we are grateful that you've graced us with your presence here. I want to appreciate all the honorable members of parliament from the Kenyan parliament who are here today, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and also our minister who is still here with us from Bangladesh. Welcome again to this session. I want us to focus and spend our energies today focusing on real issues that are going to unlock real opportunities for our women. I think, given the history of the women's movement, the progress we've made has not been as significant compared to the efforts that we've put in this movement. And I think every time we make several steps forward, we make several others backward. But I want us today to boldly confront some of the issues that keep gender equality and women's empowerment out of reach. I want to talk about the structural barriers and architectural barriers that keep our women locked in discrimination. I don't know whether any of us have confronted these three issues. One, patriarchy, and how we can fund to bring down patriarchal barriers. We all know that patriarchy is one of the biggest contributors to gender inequality and discrimination. But I don't see a lot of effort being put on funding interventions that really confront patriarchy. And as we confront patriarchy, it's not a fight against men, because both men and women are both perpetuators and sustainers of patriarchy. It's about innovative approaches that address patriarchy at its very core. I want us to address internalized misogyny. I've experienced for myself during the time I've been PS for gender in this country, that it's not only men who refuse to vote for women, even the women themselves are not comfortable voting for women. How do we confront this and address it? We keep saying we are the biggest in terms of population and numbers. So if we don't vote for women, how do we expect the other gender to vote for women? How do we confront this misogyny, both for both sexes? How do we confront cultural practices? In the face of cultural practices, even the very best of laws are neutered. How do we confront this, and how do we fund to ensure that we address cultural practices that keep women discriminated against? I would like us to think about these questions today, because they are at the very heart of sustained discrimination for women. I would like us to think about unlocking real funding for transformative financing for our women. There's a lot of talk about transformative financing for women. But really, some of these amazing programs do not reach the grassroots or the women they're intended to benefit. How do we unlock this pipeline? How do we remove all the barriers that stop our women from accessing real financing for business? And not only the women at the bottom of the pyramid. I also want to talk about the missing middle. There are very many women in the middle class who also do not have access to financing. How do we unlock financing for both women at the bottom of the pyramid, but also for the women who are in the missing middle? I want us to think about how do we unlock budgets and support and funding for the most critical areas for our women. Energy. How do we increase access to affordable energy so that we can free up the time for our women? How do we increase access to water so we free up time and resources for our women? And how do we increase the size of the pie that our women benefit from in agriculture, where they're the biggest players, yet they have the smallest return in terms of economic benefit? How do we unlock these critical areas so that our women make real progress? And I also want to ask, how do we unlock representation of women at both economic, social, and the political spaces? Today, as we think about these questions I'm posing, I want us to think about how do we increase funding from activism to real action? How do we move funding from funding for activism to funding for real action that women can touch and feel on the ground? How do we ensure that funding is destined for real impact? I want to welcome all of you to have a very open, honest discussion that confronts this issue that I'm raising here today, and that tries to, conversations that try to unlock the areas where we will have the most leverage for our women. So I want to open this panel, and I hope that by the end of today, we will have at least some answers to the questions I've raised here this morning. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Principal Secretary, for those wonderful remarks, and really for, prompting us to actually start thinking about systems of oppression. Because if we don't think about systems of oppression, then whatever we're talking about, we're actually talking about symptoms and not the root causes. So I think that was really powerful in terms of inviting us to think deeply about these issues. We have been working on patriarchy for like many decades. But we have not cracked the nut on how we can completely and also shut it down. And we have argued that patriarchy is not men, it's a system of oppression that we need to fight against, both as women and as men, that are progressive, that believe in substantive gender equality.
But also really touching on the issue of funding. I think we all know, people who are working on gender equality and women's human rights, that that is one issue that is also slowing down the progress and the gain that have been made in gender equality and women's human rights. And it is an important enabler for us to be able to continue doing what we are doing, to sustain our gains, to address the emerging challenges that we are facing in the world, and not just in Africa. So that is an important issue that we definitely have to discuss. And we know that the 2030 agenda also puts issue of financing as one of the critical issues. We had the Financing for Development Conference recently on this continent again in Addis Ababa, and the issue of funding gender equality and women's human rights was at the center of the discussion, but also the outcome of the third conference on financing for development. So without further ado, I'm going to invite the people on the first session. So as people on the first session come forward, I also want to, first of all, acknowledge the people that have
society, including feminist and women's rights organizations, representatives from parliament and the private sector, all committed to strengthening the effectiveness of development cooperation. And what has happened since Busan, that was back in 2011 till now? Women's rights organizations and gender equality advocates have long mobilized around the aid effectiveness agenda. On the road to the Busan High-Level Forum in 2011, but also before on the road to the Accra High-Level Forum in 2008. And this, on the road to those big meetings, the key demands were around to fully evaluate and deepen the Paris and Accra commitments to development effectiveness, to strengthen development effectiveness through practices based on human rights standards, including women's rights standards, to support CSOs as independent development actors in their own right, and commit to an enabling environment for their work in all countries, and to promote equitable and just development cooperation architecture. And though progress has been made since 2011, the demands I just mentioned today and right now are still relevant for the high-level forum that is gathering all us together today in Nairobi. The Busan High-Level Forum saw critical progress on issues related to ownership. The new global partnership shift to focus from a technical aid effectiveness approach towards a development effectiveness one, more inclusive, more political, and focus on results as rights-based development outcomes rather than aid delivery. The Busan Outcome document also strongly promoted a rights-based enabling environment for civil society and endorsed the CSO's Istanbul principles. And I would like to invite all of you to Google CSO Istanbul principles if you are interested in knowing more what do we understand by enabling environment for civil society, and what are the key commitments made behind. So CSO's Istanbul principles. I can write it down. It also includes a whole paragraph addressing
most definitely a support for the sister who noted the disabilities communities. Thank you. The other is that of reciprocal development, incorporated in some way with development effectiveness, that which is interdependent, which we purport to actually operate by at grassroots level, and the essential incorporation of spirituality. It would seem that we have incorporated and welcomed white man theory, if you like, and we have taken it upon us, but not apart for us. Our basic foundational principles and precepts that are based on our forms, our respective forms of spirituality, we would beg that that has consideration in this dialogue. Thank you for the 1 minute for Pacific. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. So as I wrap up, I would like to request Monica Alejandra to please make her way to the podium, and also Ms. Shaheen Ahmed to also make her way in front. You are on this panel. So in terms of wrapping up, I think the key thing that really have come up in this session, I think we have seen that, we have heard that, you know, we have to have shared, we may not be able to have one voice, but it's key that even as we have solidarity, we are guided by shared principles. And how do we get shared principles? We get shared principles because they are already standards, international human rights standards on women, human rights, and gender equality. I'm sure we know we have CEDAW, we have Beijing, and when we come to different regions, so for Africa, of course, we have the protocol. So how do we make sure that even when we have gaps in some new instruments or development agendas, that those gaps are actually addressed by using the already existing instruments, because those are still unfinished business and they are still definitely relevant. And I think Nerea did a good job to, you know, talk about the 2030 agenda in terms of its gains, but also its gaps in addressing gender equality and women human rights. But I don't think that's a huge obstacle, because we already have CEDAW, we have Beijing, we have other instruments that are actually more elaborate and more comprehensive on addressing gender and women human rights issues. So again, let's remind ourselves that 2030 agenda is not the beginning and the end, but it comes to complement other instruments that are in existence. I think we also heard that, you know, there are some of the issues that we are going to discuss since this was the first session. So don't worry if your question wasn't responded to adequately, because we are hoping that by the end of the day, we will be able to have responded to those issues that have been raised. And I want to end here. Thank you so much for your attention and for you being active. And now I hand over to my sister, Nyanzai, to moderate this session. Our sister from Bangladesh, who is supposed to be on this panel, Shaheen Ahmed. Is it a sister or brother?
Shaheen Ahmed Chandra.
Okay, well, maybe you can start as we look for her. I hope there's a delegation from Bangladesh. Okay, great. One second. So someone, the commissioner from the Karenji wants to make the floor. You want me to ask her to come to the podium? Okay. Okay. And this is whatever. I'll take it from you, but this is the full names.
Thank you so much, and it's still good, I don't know, afternoon, good morning. Welcome to this, to session 2. I'd like to focus what this session is about, as we have 45 minutes of good, deep discussion. Our session is focusing on what is at stake for gender equality and women's rights at this high-level meeting for the Global Partnership on Effective Development Cooperation. So the focus is what is at stake at this high-level forum. So it means we are getting close to that draft declaration, to the theme and to the discussions that are going to happen in the high-level meeting. That's where we want to influence the outcome of the high-level meeting itself, knowing that definitely is for long-term impact and implementation. I have an amazing panel. I have an amazing panel with diversity of regions, from the Americas, from Asia, from Africa, on the panel, and we also have some intervention from Europe. We also have diversity of constituency to interact with this conversation. So it's my pleasure to introduce our full slate of panelists. We have Monica Alejandra Novillo, who is from Bolivia. We have my sister Zabib Kavuma, who is with UN Women, responsible for the program and work here in Kenya. And we have civil society and the multilateral institutions. We are expecting Madam Shaheen Ahmed Chaudhry from Bangladesh to join us. And she is the Director General for the Department of Women and Children's Affairs. So that's government. I'll also be looking forward to an intervention from the Canadian High Commission to Kenya. So that's a government. And so two government interventions from different perspectives, and indeed we want to have enough time for real conversation. I'm going to ask our panelists to do their 5-minute spiel each, so that we have enough time for discussion. So I'd like to start by inviting us to go to La Paz, to go to Oruro, to go to Cochabamba. I have traveled to your place, beautiful country, Bolivia. Monica, you are the director and coordinator for La Mujer, a women's organization in Bolivia. Muchas gracias for being here. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. I will ask you all to put the earplugs or earphones. Yes, I feel more comfortable speaking in Spanish, which is my mother language. I'm glad you have been in Bolivia. I don't know if some people of here have been in Bolivia. Bolivia is a small country in South America. And yes, I come from a city, is Cochabamba, and now we are facing some trouble about water in Bolivia. So this is an issue about development, but we have to address. And it's not working? I think, okay, sí. Bueno,
thank you again. Before beginning, I wish to thank my sisters and colleagues from the feminist group, member of the Alliance of Organizations from the Civil Society, GPEDC. It's abbreviation in English, which has made it possible for us to be here in this forum for women before the high-level meeting. The feminists, we are here present because this is a process of historical accumulation. As Nerea was saying, feminists and women's organizations have involved themselves from very early on in the agenda for the development activities. So 10 years ago, we had the second high-level meeting is at a peculiar moment because we celebrate 10 years from the first meeting in Paris, which began to set the tone for the efficiency in aid, which later on will transform itself based on several global events, Paris 2005. The discourse was strengthened. Then we went to Accra, then Busan. It's a long trek, a trip through various countries with different implications, because in Busan in 2015, the discourse and the policy on development efficiency became something different. The policy of efficiency in development, with connotations not only in the name but also at political level, which were driven by CSOs also. But Busan also is the beginning of a new phase, because we include in the conversations civil society as an entity with a relevant voice in the development debate. After Busan, we had various events which were milestones, and I believe that we will mention them in our conversation. But right now, we are in the second high-level meeting. This is the second. The first one took place in Mexico. And feminist organizations already had actively participated there. What are we going to look at in this meeting? Why are we here? Why are we putting so much emphasis? Why is there so much expectation? Well, because, as I was saying, we are closing a cycle, a first decade, taking stock of what had happened in all these activities. But also, we should think about the context in which we are. Are we in the same context as 10 years ago? Right now, UN member states have approved a new development agenda with a series of fundamental challenges, among which we have the goal number 5, which has to do with women's empowerment for women and girls. And this is significant because we are saying that one of the fundamental goals is that, but also because we come from a series of evaluations which had been carried out in the light of the Millennium Development Goals, because in 2015 there was a time when the states should have eliminated poverty in the first 15 years, but our governments did not manage it. And when we finished that 15-year period, if we didn't manage to put an end to poverty, well, we need a new agenda then. Well, it's more complex than that. But what I'm trying to mention is that our governments have to make commitments, not just signing a paper. No, more than that. The commitments which had been taken in Paris, Busan, Mexico, Accra, those commitments have to be reaffirmed. They have to be refreshed in this high-level process in Nairobi. That's one of the things that we hope from this meeting. On the one hand, to reaffirm, to ratify the commitments accepted by our governments with agendas that have already been signed, with commitments, but not only the agenda that has to do with effectiveness in development. No, also with one link to human rights. And when I say this, I am referring to commitments signed which have to do with women's rights. For example, CEDAW, the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW in English. We also have a platform for action in Beijing and the Cairo platform. These are pending commitments, and they have to do with issues which are absolutely strategic for the transformation of the life of women. When we speak about development, when we speak about women's rights, we are emphasizing, for example, violence against women, because in our region, femicide has increased alarmingly. In my country, only in 2016, there were 94 femicides for our population in Bolivia. It's very, very high, which means that in the light of our development agendas, we have managed a lot. We have frameworks which are very important and laws, but we are not seeing concrete transformation in women's lives. That requires political will, not only from governments, from donor governments, also from beneficiary governments, beneficiaries of cooperation, but also a civil society which needs to be very active, which needs to commit itself with the issue of development. So I think that the Busan, all the commitments from Busan, where we involve ourselves in the civil society with our own voice, because we have to remember that the global partnership is not like any other space for political action, for CSOs. Normally, in multilateral spaces in the UN, we CSOs are acting from outside, trying to reach a compromise with our governments. In this space, civil society has a space where it can make its voice heard, and this is important. It's a great opportunity to be able to advance in our plan with greater transparency, so that this issue of gender as a fundamental issue for development, as a basic requirement in order to advance, so that it may be considered a central issue. Several of the evaluations which have been carried out have shown us that if we do not advance faster to achieve gender equality, well, we'll suffer delays in our quest for development also. I wanted to mention these ideas to start the ball rolling in our debate. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Monica, for really that very passionate presentation. As we transition to the next speaker, you're saying we should not go back on the agreed commitments in relation to effective development cooperation. Those principles which our governments agreed to and which we have already put on the table have to be fundamentally there, and you really position also the intersectionality of issues and the importance of violence against women as also having a very concrete focus on that as a manifestation of patriarchy and of the issues that we are talking about. I'd like to invite Zebib Kavuma, who is the country director for UN Women here in Kenya. And we know that the issue of development cooperation and partnership is so key to the delivery of the SDGs. Could you share with us your perspectives from UN Women? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Neradzai, and also thank you to the organizers for inviting us to be part and parcel of this very, very important gathering. I think I'm not going to say too much in the interest of time so that we can debate a bit, because I had a lot of information. But I think maybe what's critical is that, I mean, when we need to acknowledge, of course, the path that we have taken so far. And when you look at the global attention on gender equality and women's empowerment, you can see that we've come a long way, where we are starting with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that can be traced all the way now to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And in between, of course, there have been many, many, many other platforms where we've discussed the issues of gender equality and women's empowerment as a whole. But the question I think that remains is, so what? So what that we have all of this, and what are we trying to achieve with that? And we have increasingly seen that on paper, the right language, the right emphasis is always placed, but it doesn't necessarily translate, like we have already said, into transforming the lives of women and girls on the ground. And why is this not happening? And I think we've already heard that there are a number of barriers that do exist vis-a-vis, such interventions to ensure that when push comes to shove, the women, the boys, the men and girls are actually being transformed and living a different type of life. I think in this quest for efficiency and effectiveness and the limited resources. Even us as the UN system, we've been told numerously that we have to reform and we have to deliver as one and we have to work as one. But I think we have to really think deeper in terms of what does it mean when we have these kinds of callings that say be more effective, efficient when you are together rather when you're working in silos. And how do we really get about doing that? Because we do have different mandates, we do have different priorities, we do have different strength. But if it is not being brought together in a very efficient and coordinated manner, whereby it's understood in terms of what it is that we're trying to achieve at the end of the day, then all of this becomes rhetoric and there is really no action that is taken. I think as UN Women, we've tried to invest a lot of our work in providing the evidence, because till today we have to keep explaining why women have to be part and parcel of this development agenda. Even though we've been singing this chorus for a very, very long time, we still have to remind ourselves again and again why women play a role when they are 50% of the population in this world, and how they cannot be left behind, and how do we really unleash their potential. And when we even have this evidence, and many reports, including recently the Africa Women Matter report from McKinsey, even the UNDP report, a human development report that speaks to gender equality and women's empowerment, there seems to be no sense of urgency, even though it's understood that women have a firm role to play and make a contribution that is significant to the development of any given country and the increase in the GDP of any country. Why is it that then when it comes to the implementation and the accountability framework, we are still reluctant to put the resources where we need to put them? And I think if I could say one thing in terms of what this high-level meeting needs to accelerate and really push is the Addis Ababa agenda. And financing for development is a must. It shouldn't be a choice. I think we are all equally responsible to ensure that we have the resources locally, domestically, and we also have the resources from other spaces. But if we do not own this agenda ourselves as communities, and as governments and as civil society as a whole, there is no way the transformation can happen. We are living in a different geopolitics and a different climate than we have from 10, 15, 20 years ago. And there are technologies that we can utilize for innovation, for acceleration, but we need to be in those spaces, and women must be in those spaces. And even as governments, as multilaterals, as bilaterals, we need to give that space to women to define for themselves what are the changes that need to be done. I think when we have to move from the legislative framework, from the policies that are really good, and they have been established in most of the countries, to women's representation and participation, and in a equal and fair manner, where women do not feel that they are they are just thought of when there are no other options or no other choices that people can make. And more women need to be at the policy table as well, to ensure that what is guiding governments is actually being done from a gender responsive and gender lens. So I think as the UN system, of course, we try to coordinate and we try to make sure that women's voices are heard. We have the UN Women as an entity now, which we didn't have before. But again, we are still the smallest fish even within the UN system. And we still have to fight for our own space and our own resources. And I think everything that women, even in civil society, are facing, we are also facing in a bureaucracy within the UN system. So it's really kind of saying, how do we hold hand and make sure that we're all moving in the right direction, and that we are moving with those who have a stake, who have an interest, and who can influence the discourse and provide the resources that are necessary, the human skills that are necessary, and the investment that we need so that we can see this transformation. So we still continue to call upon ourselves as a UN system to really push this agenda and be daring and really hold or try to hold or remind governments to hold themselves accountable based on the principles that they have signed. But we equally equally also want to work with civil society to ensure that the spaces are also given as rights holders to be able to hold the duty bearers accountable for what it is that we have all agreed globally, regionally, and locally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zabib. As you were sharing with us, I was thinking how we deal with this issue in the UN or in development with governments, that at times development is separate from security and is separate from humanitarian. And yet when I'm in my village and in countries in conflict or with a humanitarian situation, life is not as fragmented. And so how can we talk about effective development cooperation that really integrates the context, whether it's a context of humanitarian or context to do with the security agenda? And why I'm also saying that is because at times I wonder, I'm just throwing it for when we have the discussion, why is there very little money for development, education, youth employment, gender equality issues, but the military budgets are so huge? How can that be part of our critical conversation around prioritization, national prioritization of resources or in the collaboration? And the other thing that flickered into my mind as I then asked our representative, our director from Bangladesh, is the instruments for development cooperation. And one of the instruments of development cooperation are the financing to civil society tools for funding to civil society. Me, I'm running a group, an organization in the village in Zimbabwe. We are based in the village. We do national and regional work. But this whole idea of competitive bidding is reducing women's networks at national, local level to subcontractors. They can't compete because the skills needed for you to write that very complex proposal is really reducing most of the gender advocates in the development in the global south to subcontractors, because then we really have to rely on collaboration and partnership with other bigger stakeholders. How do we address the instruments of collaboration in a way that it empowers community and does not take away the power from gender advocates at community level so that they can self-represent and they can be on the table? These are just some reflections, as the UN is a platform where we can raise some of these issues very happily and confidently. It's now my pleasure to invite the next speaker, who is the Director for Women and Children's Affairs in Bangladesh. Yes, Madam Chondre.
Light or not? You have to off the light.
Oh.
Technology is so critical, and in the village you can also shout without technology. So, Madam Chondre, you can continue without, but I know the interpreters would need. Yeah. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Dear moderator and fellow panelists, let me go to my discussion straight. I would like to say that this important issue should be discussed comprehensively. In fact, until now, the gender dimension of aid has not been much discussed. Despite the fact that there are some organizations that look with special attention at the gender issue, but their visibility is very low in the whole aid architecture. At the country level, data relating to gender and percentage of total aid are neither readily available nor accessible, and the lack of data often results in low policy advocacy and accountability. Over the past few decades, we have committed many ambitious goals and targets regarding gender equality and women's rights, but the real implementation of those targets is remarkably low. This is mainly because we did not walk to the talk. Not only national actors, but also the international actors equally fail to steer gender issues in development cooperation. We have to understand that helping women is not just helping a segment of global population, but in essence, it is like helping the whole people of the world, as women play multiple roles that somehow or other benefit or affect men as well. Now, time has come to critically analyze gender dimension in aid. Since GPEDC is the only dedicated platform for development effectiveness, it should be GPEDC's role to develop a task team of gender and women empowerment and undertake research and advocacy for higher aid contribution to gender and women equality. Both public and non-government gender institutions should be actively engaged in the business and dialogues of GPEDC and other organizations working for aid and development effectiveness. Forging partnership between women organizations, advocacy networks, and GPEDC would also be important to mainstreaming the gender discussion in aid and development cooperation. The partnership will trigger opportunities to learn from each other situation and context and strengthen voices for women's rights, and equally both at the national, regional, and global level. Dear participants, development planning has an important role to ensure gender equality, as it is the main means of translating global commitments and targets at the national level. Thus, it has to be ensured that development policies are taking cognizance of gender needs and priorities. Research, academia, and women rights organizations have to critically review different national policies and share publicly the gaps between commitments and real implementations. I would also say that we have to have strong collaboration and engagement with parliamentarians. Parliamentary debate and discussion may help improve women's condition and situation in a given country. Particularly, women parliamentarians could be champions of gender justice. From our own experience, we have seen that the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Women Affairs and different individual women parliamentarians made significant contribution to improving women's situation in Bangladesh. Since we are all committed to share aid data as part of aid transparency, we need to undertake an analysis and review at the country level to see if aid is helping create opportunities for the women in development. We have to review that to what extent aid contributes to creating decent and congenial environment for women in livelihood efforts. Despite legal reforms, and which has already been done in many countries, women face challenges still, women. This requires collective interventions and from different stakeholders to be addressed. And aid can play a catalytic role for going a common platform for all stakeholders to steer women's agenda in development. It's a good progress that the draft Nairobi outcome document has taken serious note of women issue, and GPED is a monitoring review commits to review Goal 5 of the SDGs. I hope this would make huge contribution to women empowerment. Finally, I would like to say, together we'll be able to achieve our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. I understand there is Jocelyn from OECD who is required to go to the help desk now. Jocelyn Foysia, if you can go to the help desk. As I was listening to Madam Chondri, I was wondering, we need to define what is effective development cooperation, what goes into that package in addition to aid, because aid is only one instrument of development cooperation. Let's talk about sharing know-how, technology, technical assistance. We need to also maybe reflect on what can the Global South share with the Global North in terms of technical expertise, because the current tradition is North-South and not sufficiently also South-North in terms of expertise. And you raised also a fundamental question around data. At times I wonder, we always say data is insufficient, but what can we do with the data we have whilst we are filling in the data gaps? So yes, we have data gaps, but with what we know today, that 15 million girls are being married under the age of 15, what can we do with the data we have as part of the conversation of this high-level meeting, so that we are not waiting for the gender data in order to respond, but we are also responding with what we know. These are just some reflections from the presentation, and indeed the role of the moderator is to be provocative. We have 6-7 minutes for comments, for reflections. If you just raise your hands, then I can quickly recognize. So we'll start here and we'll go here, and you have to be on point because of the time that we have. Yes, I'll be coming to you. We'll start here and then we come to you. I would like to recognize. Yes, I would like to invite the Canadian High Commissioner to Kenya, Madam Sarah Hadredeke. You have a difficult surname like mine, and we don't apologize for it, by the way. But thank you for coming to from a country with a feminist Prime Minister. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much. You mentioned our feminist policy of our government. On behalf of Canada, simply to say gender equality, the empowerment of women and girls, and the realization of their human rights are core Canadian priorities. And the Government of Canada is committed to promoting women's rights globally. Let there be no doubt that Canada's commitment to promoting gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls is at the heart of our international assistance agenda. I can assure you that Canada is very keen to collaborate with civil society. For example, Canada's Minister of International Development recently convened an event on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly that brought together women's civil society and human rights organizations, girls activists groups, and men and boys to engage in a discussion around the important role that these actors play in advancing gender equality. We're encouraged by the findings of the Global Partnership's 2016 Progress Report, which point to positive trends in tracking and publishing gender-based budgets and on consulting with civil society, but recognize that more work needs to be done. We support the task team on civil society development effectiveness and enabling environment in their call on the GPDC to uphold its commitments on development effectiveness principles, inclusive multi-stakeholder partnerships, and of course recognizing civil society organizations as independent actors. We believe this will be key to ensuring meaningful consultation of groups promoting women's rights and gender equality, and we look forward to the inputs from this forum into that process as well. Canada will continue to work with a broad range of partners to ensure that the goals and targets on gender equality are effectively implemented, and ensuring gender equality, the empowerment of women and girls, and the realization of their human rights is crucial to the achievement of peace, prosperity, and sustainable development. On behalf of the Canadian delegation, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for those words. Yes, please, and quickly to the point. We want to get as many comments as possible. If you can just go to the point. Thank you.
My name is Honorable Zainab Chizuga. My question is directed to the UN Women. First, may I say we congratulate the UN Women because it has been working very hard in our country, working with our organization. I, being a parliamentarian, I am the Vice Chair Lady of KEWOPA, and we work together with UN Women in empowering youth and women. My question is that as much as we are talking about empowering youth and women in our country or in other parts of the world, but there's something which we are really missing on. There is this woman who's angry, there's this child who's angry. Do you think somebody will listen to any advocacy when somebody is hungry? What are we doing to make sure that we put bread on the table at the rural areas? So that these women will be ready to listen to what we are telling them. Secondly, I have a question on the areas of the gender balance in our country. When we as parliamentarians came up with a bill on how we can get women elected in different areas within our country. All men ganged up to say that it is very expensive. Yet we didn't see the civil society coming up to stand with us when these men were adding up on the numbers of constituencies. Then what is this we are talking about, empowering the woman? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Two questions there. How can we have impact in communities, and also looking at the issue of hunger? We understand that effective development cooperation is about the SDGs, which includes the issue of poverty. Yes, I hear you on this corner. There was a hand up here first, which I had promised to take, and I'll come to this corner with your indulgence. There was a hand here. If you can quickly give your comment. Yes, please. If you can quickly and to the point.
Merci. Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe that for us to realize what we are saying and to have resources and go towards efficiency, quality, and equity of gender, I think that in our countries we should have a certain understanding, a total understanding of we as women. Because that's the problem that was asked this morning when our ladies from Kenya spoke, because when you are defending something, you can have another group next to you that is saying the opposite of what you're saying or doing. And to have the financing, I think the fight against corruption in our countries should be one of the important priorities. And accountability, accountability should be something that should be a priority in our countries. That is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll get to one question at the back. And your question, there were some hands there. I need to then talk to the colleagues from there, and then we have to round up. So if you can be to the point, sir.
I'll serve in a minute. I am just intervening just to bring gender equality, because this house is dominated by the ladies. One minute. But
I hear you.
Excuse me.
I'm not intervening. I'm just saying you have 30 seconds. We have so many people who want to ask.
I'm just going to complete with 20 minutes.
Yes, continue. 20 minutes?
Oh, sorry.
20 seconds. Continue into the point, sir.
What we have to do, I said earlier also, we have to work together, both domestically and globally. What is that? The developed countries should share their technical know-how and technologies with the developing countries, so that we can work together. One. Two, gender equality is not a charity of anybody, of the man folk. It's a human right. We must all work together to achieve that, the men and women together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There was a quick hand at the back behind you, and to the point. Just go straight to, I have to go this side. Yes, please.
Thank you. Yes, as has been stated, I think we have understood that gender mainstreaming in development initiatives needs to be done, but it's not well understood how. And so we end up seeing a lot of token ways of just counting how many women benefited from a project, rather than did this project actually transform power relations, did it transform women's lives? Thank you.
Thank you. Beyond naming to solutions, I have ignored this side. And I have to really offer space to this side. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that you look at this side, please. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the three presenters. I think they're wonderful. I didn't get the name of the woman. I think it's from Ethiopia. I totally agree with you. There are things that I don't agree with the panel at all, because I think we need to question what development for who. I read the outcome paper that is coming from this meeting, draft 3, and it already has the 2030 agenda, which has not been discussed with the people on the ground. And so my question is, development for who? Because the model that has been introduced in our throats by the private partnerships is the model of extractive industries that is displacing women, displacing entire communities. And nobody has said anything about the criminalization that we are suffering on the ground.
Thank you.
And the militarization of our territories. So I wonder who decide what development is? Whose development is this? And that's the question that we need to ask deeply, because this is affecting us on a daily basis, and it's especially affecting children and women and migrants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're raising fundamental issues. This is our space to define. So definitely what you have been doing is also to define the values that you want to see in the conversation, the values that connect with communities, that address the extractive industries, that address the issues of indigenous knowledge, and space for voice to define. So we are very grateful. I think what has been raised is we need to be solution-oriented. When you are raising your hand, you are giving a proposal for solution. Because proposal for solution is what we need. We cannot continue to complain. Yeah. We have to be able to be change agents who are leaders who are finding solutions. I'll get the last few comments. One hand there. At the back, can you be 30 seconds? Yes, please. And quickly.
30 segundos es para Mónica Novillo.
30 seconds for Mónica Novillo. It is clear that progress has been made, but there is no implementation. We lack resources, political participation is very limited. My recommendation is that we have to be more specific in our analysis. What is the contribution of Busan in connection with the CEDAW, Cairo and Beijing? Because likely Busan is much further behind that women had already attained. So what do we do in order to articulate those agenda from a perspective of development, and what type of development has just been mentioned?
There are so many things we are unhappy about, but we have to be finding the solutions and to be recommending solutions. There was a hand up here at the front.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I'm a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and this is my first time to attend a forum like this one. What I wanted to request was, during this session or any future similar fora, do you at any point in time discuss best practice from various countries? Because I happen to be sitting more often than not around men, and they're asking me, like when I came on this special assignment, they say, we want your contribution for the budget. So if we can make specific proposals, and if we can pick best practice from other countries, I think it will help us a lot. I thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's good to have the permanent secretary from the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Finance, and from my country. Yes. I think it's the point that you're also raising is, where do we do intersectionality across sectors, where the women's issues are also seen mostly as the Ministry of Gender Issues, and here we also need to do the intersectionality. So this is very important that we have representation from Parliament, and I'm under pressure, right? Your moderator is under pressure. Here.
I'm Antonica Fanar. I am from Moldova, President of National Council. Sister and brothers, my feeling, we are not very good relatives of UN women. So my proposal is to speak about how good we work with UN women, how good UN women understand in all regions our necessities, because in some regions and in some countries, UN Women decide who is bigger in the village and who decides in village. So it's better to decide to discuss some of these problems also.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're talking about the institutional arrangements of collaboration. I have just received a message from the organizers, and I'm excited that we have the afternoon to continue the conversation in different forums, in different ways, but the House is excited by the deep conversation. I have to not be between you and lunch. I have to ask my panelists to do one thing. No stories, please. We know the stories. If there's one thing, one, like Moja, one, which you would say we want when the high-level meeting concludes on the 1st, we want this one thing to be a commitment in the declaration. What is it? One. Who wants to go first? From my panelists.
I think that side. Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Zabib?
I would say that it definitely has to do with gender responsive budgeting. And I think that in the public finance management acts of each country, there should be a deliberate percentage that is set aside for issues of gender equality and women's empowerment.
With your indulgence, I would expand that to beyond budgeting, to actually gender responsive within the fiscal space, so that we go beyond budget. You know, at times we budget and the money does not even get spent. So just expanding the notion. Thanks so much, Zabib. One.
Yes. I would like to say that from my side that good practices for gender equality.
So we want this global partnership to have a good practice. And we would like to recognize...
Comprehensively.
Okay. Continue. You complete your thought.
Yeah. I like to say that gender equality in global partnership and also the good practices in how to develop the gender equality. In different forums we are talking about this and talking. But result-based, I would like to see result-based gender equality perspectives. So thank you very much.
Results-based gender equality practices within the partnership itself. Your one thing. Monique, tell us.
Sí, yo creo que lo que esperaríamos ver...
What I would expect is political will translated into specific actions by the different development actors. We are talking about governments, we are talking about civil society organizations, because it is the governments who show that political will in terms of resources or policies or implementation of specific issues that have to do with the rights of women. Because what we have seen, and it has been mentioned a number of times, is that the topic of issue is used as a commitment, but it doesn't translate into specific actions. We talk about budgets are planned but not implemented, projects are not developed, cooperation has decreased, the support it has and the support it provides to the civil society organizations, who are the ones that propose the political agenda to governments. Thank you.
Accountability through resourcing, and including resourcing to women's organizations and community groups. Very practical, results-based intervention. I'm just so grateful that we've had an amazing conversation, which will continue after lunch. We've had perspectives from governments, from civil society, from parliamentarians across various regions. We've questioned our values. We've provided concrete solutions and proposals. We've had commitments from governments. Very exciting to hear the perspective from Canada on its own commitments, and from Bangladesh and from Zimbabwe, and to hear from the parliamentarians from... note, 1 second, say you have given me your card, and we want to recognize you so much for your contribution from Bangladesh as well, and we're the Member of Parliament from Kenya. So very extraordinary conversations, and also from the young women that are here. My name is Nyaradzai Gumbonjanda. I am Zimbabwean. I run Rosaria Memorial Trust, which I set up in honor of my late mother. It's based in the village, and it's not a community-based organization. It's a global organization. Being in the village does not mean that you are local. There is no global without local. Yes. The local is global, and the global is local. So I'm running an international global organization based in my village, and I'm also the African Union Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage. Again, thank you so much. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to moderate this session. I want to send us off to lunch. Let's enjoy the Kenyan cuisines and food that is in front of us. Let's come back on time. Again, thank you, and thank you to my panelists.
Very good. I'll invite every one of you to wear this button and to read the key ask of the feminist constituency of the CPDE. Please do read this. My colleagues are going to distribute this, so please take one.
So thank you so much. I think we have earned the lunch, so we are now going to go to lunch. And the gentleman here from the Gender Directorate from Government of Kenya is going to announce where lunch is served. But I would like to request you if we can use 40 minutes maximum for lunch and make our way back to this room so we can continue with the rest of the program. Please come and announce the lunch.
Hello, good afternoon. There is what we call the court, COMESA court within the KICC. That's where we can have refreshments and lunch. So we use 40 minutes to refresh ourselves at gate, and there's a place where you can get some lunch at the food court within the COMESA grounds, KICC. Moderators, our moderators and panelists, maybe we can have a minute, just a minute as we proceed for us. Just remain on for a minute. So our moderators, our panelists, just for a few minutes, we can touch base.
you can get in touch with me if you have any questions. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was saying about the schedule, because we were trying to gather everyone before the actual starts.
Hello, sorry, please pick your lunch card. Please pick your voucher, lunch voucher from us. There are some being circulated around, please. There is a team circulating the lunch voucher.
Great collaboration with Canada and Zimbabwe, so I wanted to...
Thank you very much. I met with Ambassador Buta.
Yes.
Yeah. You're here too?
Yeah, I'm here.
I hope you're great communicators.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Just in our part of the feminist government as well. Yes. So had a terrific time.
Please pick your lunch voucher. Kindly pick your lunch voucher.
Ambassador from Abidjan. Yeah. Good to meet you.
Kindly collect your lunch voucher.
Here it is.